larger than life, stronger than death, diminished yet unfinished, beyond the last step, surrounded yet unbound by corporeal self, larger than life, stronger than death, wrapped in the night, bathed in a light.
Last June, I talked with Peter Holsapple about the reissues of two classic albums by the DBs, Stands for Decibels and Repercussion. I had the pleasure of talking to Peter again recently, this time about his soon-to-be-released solo album, The Face of 68. The song you're hearing, Larger Than Life, is the first single from that album. It was great to catch up with Peter to hear about his very busy 2024, the recording of the album, touring, his continued work as a member of the Paranoid Style, and some candid, honest talk reflecting on his lifestyle in the past and his outlook on life and love these days. Stay tuned for a second talk with the one and only Peter Holsapple.
Scuttling by the window outside, on your way to where you're as free as you were.
You're listening to Frets with DJ Fey. No lessons, no technique info. I just talk to people who play guitar. Stay tuned. Well, Peter, welcome back.
Dave, how are you?
I do want to get into what's happening now and what's coming up in the new solo album, but before that, you and I talked last June, and that was only midway through the year. 2024 was an incredibly busy, productive, and active year for you, with album re-releases, and tours, and special appearances. You stayed busy the entire year, and I'd like to walk through just some observations and get your thoughts on some things throughout this past year.
Sure.
Well, in addition to the re-releases of two classic DB's albums, the band got some additional exposure. I pick up issues of Mojo once in a while. I don't subscribe, but if I see one that has like a CD that's attached that's interesting, I'll grab it. Early last year, an issue came with a compilation CD, Jet Powered Pop, that featured the DB's track, That Time Is Gone, from Falling Off the Sky.
That was pretty exciting. We didn't know that it was going to happen even. That song has had a kind of a life unto itself since we released it in, 2012, I think it came out on Falling Off the Sky. But it's been on a lot of playlists, and it seems to have kind of usurped Black and White as maybe the most popular DB's track there is these days. The power of the playlist, I guess.
Exactly. Well, I thought that was very cool. Yeah, I don't even subscribe. I still have a handful of tangible magazines that I like to get, but that one, and I've always liked Mojo, but it's those CDs that draw me in.
I hear you. I was very disappointed to see that, although I totally understand. I'm a big Oxford American Music issue fan. I don't know if you get those also. And for years, they have had CDs that are connected with the focus area, like Memphis or South Carolina or Mississippi, and it'd all be music from that area or videos or something like that. Now I believe they just do downloads, so you get the issue, but you don't get the physical CD, and I'm a little sad about that. Times has changed.
Yeah, they have. Well, you've now spent a couple of years playing and recording with the Paranoid Style. And last year, the band released The Interrogator, an album that, in addition to John Langmead on drums, Will Rigby contributed to that.
Yes, he did. That was a fun record to make. We did that at the studio. It's about 6.5 minutes away from my house, called Overdub Lane, and got to work with this marvelous engineer, Jason Richmond. And we had a lot of fun, I came in as a last-minute sub as lead guitar player. I had been actually called in to play piano again, reprise my piano part from a few years before. for an earlier title of theirs. But when it turned out that they couldn't get their guitar player because he was ill, I stepped up to the bat and swung for the bleachers, and I think I hit it out of the park.
Nice.
So that was great. That gave me a lot of confidence as a lead guitar player. I will say that they were good people to have at a critical time. Potential crisis of confidence, but it actually was like me deciding that I could actually do this, and so I did it.
Well, I saw that Lisa Walker added vocals. I'm assuming that's Lisa Walker from Wissy?
Yes, I believe so. She's a friend of Elizabeth's and Tim's.
Yeah, I saw that band at Off-Broadway a couple times, and I just noticed in the credits that she was on the album.
Yeah.
Around the same time that The Interrogator was released, the Paranoid Style opened for Drive-By Truckers down in Athens.
Yeah. We did we were their invited guests for one of their dates of the Athens Homecoming, which is their regular thing at the 40 Watt.
Yeah, I love the spelling of that. That's great.
Yeah, it was really, really neat to go and do that. Mike Mills came down. I got to introduce him to my friends in Paranoid Style. They were very thrilled.
Nice.
And I got to have breakfast with Bill Berry, who I hadn't seen for many years. And we had a farmer time breakfast. He said, "Well, I'm a farmer," and I'm like, "I know." I said, so I said, "I'd love to get together with you before your day starts." He says, "Well, like 5 o'clock in the morning." I'm like, "Yes, of course." I got no problem with 5 o'clock in the morning anymore. I have to say there was a time when I would see 5 o'clock from the backside of the evening as opposed to the first thing in the morning. I much prefer first thing in the morning. It's great at that point.
Yeah, Bill Berry. Wow, that's great. We guys also opened for the Hold Steady for a show in D.C. sometime last year.
Yeah, at the new 930 Club. That was really, really cool. I got to see my friend Seth Hurwitz, who booked that place for many, many years. I hadn't seen him for a million years too, but we had a great show. It's neat when Paranoid Style plays out. I wish we did it more. Logistically, it's a little hard to manage sometimes. John Langmead, lovely guy, but he's on the West Coast, and the rest of us are sort of around here. Well, to the band's credit, we love playing with John. John is the right drummer, and he's a great guy to have in the engine room. And so we try to make it work with that band. And it's a great, great band, really powerful.
Well, back in spring of 24, you and Will played a couple sold-out shows under the name of your old high school band, Little Diesel.
Yes, we did. That was all around the time of our 50th high school reunion as well.
Oh, wow.
And although nobody from the band went to the R.J. Reynolds High School 50th anniversary, Tom Eshelman, who was lead guitar player for Little Diesel, happened to be going to the Forsyth Country Day 50th anniversary, which was being held right down the hall.
Huh.
So we were right there together the whole time. It was really hilarious. And all the people that you loved in high school that you hadn't seen in 50 years, you're all arms around the neck, and all the people you hope you'd never see again after high school. Oh, they were there too.
Well, that's very cool.
But the former absolutely outnumbered the latter. And we had a great gig. It was such fun to play. We played 2 shows at Gas Hill, and everybody loved seeing the band again. And the band, we've had a great time playing together again all these years later. Our bass player is an investment banker and is just a brilliant guy that way. I got Will, I got me, we got Bob Northcott, who was the IT guy until he retired at North Carolina Central University. He was the head of IT there. Our various lives and the reconnection has been just marvelous.
Very nice. Well, 2024 also saw the release of White Noise and Lightning, the best of Continental Drifters, as well as the double CD tribute album, We Are All Drifters. And
also the best of that showed up on Omnivore recordings called White Noise and Lightning.
Oh, right.
Best of Continental Drifters. So we had two things with the same name almost. But that was nice. That was a really great thing to have happen for the band. There was a lot of after the fact love. And I think that is a band that, again, will be one of those groups that people reassess later on and say, I missed this, and I'm sorry I missed this because it's really good. because again, this is a great band with great songs and a surfeit of great songwriters, and how can it not be wonderful? I mean, that's my feeling, as I'm discovering with like the DB's reissues, great music sort of stays great, whether it's getting promoted at the time or not. Sometimes stuff just has a different lifetime. A song will come along and people will love it later. It's like, you were talking about That Time Is Gone, and that's like 12 years after the record came out, but it shows up on the Mojo CD. How cool is that? It's pretty cool.
That's very cool.
Yeah.
Hey, I want to talk about Plug. Plug makes it easy for you to purchase the personal technology you need at 40 to 70% off retail pricing. What can you get from Plug? Certified pre-owned devices, including iPhones, Androids, AirPods, Macs, smartwatches, accessories, and more. I originally didn't even want an Apple Watch, but I got one from Plug and I love it. I wear it every day. Your purchase is backed by their unmatched 1-year warranty and a 30-day money-back guarantee. One more very cool thing, Plug is dedicated to helping reduce e-waste around the globe. To date, Plug has helped save over 1 million devices from reaching landfills. And they're looking to double that number by 2025. Link to Plug from the show notes and check out all the great deals and savings on certified pre-owned devices. Plug Tech. Check it out. Well, a very sweet moment for me way back, however many years ago. When my daughter was still a teen, many, many years ago, I played for her Vermilion. I think you'd really like this, and we were just in the car or something. I said, I think you'd really like this. And she really did. And I guess I forgot. I must have made her a copy or something. And then fast forward to, I don't know, a year or so ago, I was in the car with her driving, and she popped in a playlist that she had made, and she had the Rain song on there. And I thought, well, that's pretty
nice.
Sweet. It was really cool. So, yeah.
Okay, that is a key example of a song that really is deserving of its time. It's not like it hasn't had a shot a couple of times either. It got recorded by the Bangles and it got recorded by Hootie and the Blowfish.
Right.
And both are really great versions. And, I believe it has probably made Susan a little pocket change over the years. But that song should have gone through the roof.
Yeah.
Honestly, I think that's just one of the, I don't want to say it's criminal, but I just think it's insane. I mean, that song is, from the minute I heard it, I knew. I have a demo that I made with Susan, like right when we first met, and she had played me this song, and I had her come over and I had her play it into this. I had one of those big old unwieldy Tascam 388s with a 7-inch reel-to-reel built in and a mixing board. You know the thing I'm talking about? It's like 3 foot by 4 foot, and it weighs about the size of what a Datsun weighs. So, and it was like, but I knew even then, and we did a demo, and I played a bunch of like drums and guitars and stuff on it and sang backgrounds and kind of arranged it. And we used a lot of those arrangement things on the Drifters thing, but the essence of the song was there. And it was just so neat. It was so neat to hear her, as somebody who had been a fan of hers, her work as a kid, but hearing this new, I don't know what you'd say. Again, I mean, people have career shifts, right? I mean, you want to keep things fresh for yourself and for your audience, presumably. I mean, your audience really loves the first thing you ever did. That I've discovered over the years, both from DD shows and also from house concert shows, that they know the stuff that they first heard, which is by and large songs from Stands for Decibels and Repercussion.
Right.
And, and of course it I hate to say that it sort of like starts dropping as it goes along. It shouldn't, I mean, obviously, but those are the songs. So, people that heard the Cowsills heard a little girl, right? I mean, little girls, hopefully at this point are writing songs, right?
Right.
I mean, you've got people like Taylor Swift out there inspiring people, and God knows so many great songwriters, but at that point, not likely, I don't think, or mid 1960s, not anything. I mean, I was writing songs at age 8, but they were terrible. I mean, there were certainly nothing that anybody will ever hear, but I mean, they exist. But to see someone come along and become this almost like instantaneously successful songwriter. And I will say this also, speaking as a friend and a former bandmate, and sometime former bandmate. I guess we're going to play sometime next this fall. But Susan Cowsill as a songwriter has pretty much batted right around 1,000 with all of her songs. I can't think of any song of hers that isn't really great.
She's great.
I don't think there are many songwriters that have that kind of consistent quality. Liz Stokes from the Beths is one. I think every song that she writes is really great. But like I say, I'm as her friend and cohort in the Drifters and even the Psycho Sisters and stuff. I just hearing the transition over the years and listening to what she writes, and I'm just really thrilled, because it's a long way back from Child Star, I think.
Oh yeah.
Especially trying to reinvent yourself as something, and it's a tremendous success. So yay.
Yeah, Susan's great.
They just call with the news. I always knew he had the blues. This is not what I thought he'd choose. It's so sad about Sam. I don't know where I am anymore since he closed the door to the store. It's so sad about Sam. But if you hear sweet music coming from a gold guitar, that's easy riding. Oh, Sam's getting to know tonight. It's so sad I can't stand to think I'll never see him again.
Well, one more thing on the We're All Drifters tribute album. Steve Wynn was just recently on the show, and I love his cover of Green. That's a great cover.
It is really great.
A lot of good stuff on that album.
Steve toured with the Drifters at one point. I'm trying to think when that would have been exactly. Maybe 99 or something like that, 98, 99. We went all over the place, and we were his backing band, except for Linda. Linda played drums, and it was just marvelous. It was such fun getting to play those songs with him. Have you read his book?
I have the book, and we talked about it on the show, and I promised him on the show that I'm going to dive into it. And
well, let me urge you to read that. It's a very wonderful book. It's great stories. What I really like about it, I've known Steve for many, many decades, and to hear what it was like for him at that time versus what it seemed like for me it was like for him. You know what I mean? As somebody that was around him at the time, and his assessment of how he was at the time, it's very interesting to see how that jives together. Because there were times I think that I didn't think a ton of him, but I don't know why. Maybe because I was just such an asshole, I will say this also for the Drifters book. It was an eye-opener to find out exactly how much of an asshole I actually was. And I'm cool with that now. I've had to come to terms with the kind of person I was. And a lot of it had to do with excessive alcohol intake, as so often is the case.
That'll do it.
It'll do it every time, won't it? I mean, I just, I like my life now. I'm 22 years since my last drink, and I think about it sometimes. I admit it. Come Sunday morning, and wouldn't a mimosa be nice about now over a New York Times and everything bagel with salmon and cream cheese, and then I think, well, I can have all the rest of that shit. I don't have to have the mimosa. And life has cleared up. My two younger kids have never known me as a drinker. That's great. I feel like I've been given a tremendous reprieve. And I don't think I could have done this record of mine without having done that. And I think there's a certain element of, after 22 years of not drinking, I don't think your brain grows back. I think I've lost whatever brain cells I've lost. Well, product of my employment, I suppose. But what I have been able to reaccess has been monumental, and I'm better in touch with emotions, so I can read something like the Drifters biography and say, "Wow, I was just awful to be around," and I served a really good purpose. I was good to be around with a lot of that stuff, but it's hard when you're in a working relationship with somebody and their substance issues really get in the way of making things succeed. And I looked at that book, and I first, having lived through it, a lot of it I laid at the feet of Carlo Nuccio, our drummer and founder. But as I read and as I thought and I processed everything, I realized that a lot could also be laid at my own feet. And that was really eye-opening. And I'm glad to know that. And it gives me a better perspective on those days. It makes me eternally grateful that I am not a drinker anymore. We drank so much in that band. We were I often mention that at the inception of the band, there were ashtrays at everybody's station. Everybody's amp had an ashtray on it. There was an amp by Carlos drums. By the time we finally broke up, nobody smoked anymore.
Had enough of
We've
that.
made the big shift.
Well, hats off to you for that. That's a great, healthy attitude, and I'm glad you're come to terms with reading about your own life. So that's great.
It's a weird experience. It's sort of like, it's like reading your own obituary or something. My wife, bless her heart, is considerably younger than I am, and said, if you wouldn't mind writing your own obituary, if there's stuff you want in there. I had written them for my parents. I wrote one for her father and stuff. And I was like, sure, I'll knock that right out. And so I have one. I have one that is like open dated right now. And I try to look at it periodically and figure out, does this need anything else? Oh, wait, there's a granddaughter now. Yes, we could do that.
No.
Little bits of things like that. But it's, my record is not the record of a 22-year-old power pop guy. I think you will have to consider. I have tried to put all of the great things that have happened musically in my life, and I try to put them all. When I made this record, I wanted to put them all in perspective, and I wanted to see where this set of songs and where this instrumentation was going to fit in. Because it's a record that I wanted to make that was going to be different from what the DB's records sound like and what the Continental Drifters records sound like. And I think I may have pulled that off. It's a sonically different, tonally different. I use acoustic guitar in one song. What was he thinking? But and I recorded it in 3.5 days.
Wow.
And I had a real rhythm section and a real producer, and it was so timely. I don't know how to even say this exactly. Give me a second here. It was conceived as something that could be done pretty quickly because I didn't have a big budget, right? This is not one of those lavishing around in a big studio with the T-boy and the fresh pastries every morning and stuff when you come in. This is like get in there, knock it out, go home. and still have enough time to get the laundry done, to
Right.
do the new parameters of rock and roll. Oh, I got to mow the lawn. Shoot. And we did that. And I think it's funny because it sort of goes in keeping with the idea that people look at a record or people listen to a record in the same way that when they watch a movie, they think, oh, wow, that was seamless. That took I mean, I don't know that they necessarily think it took nothing. I think they're more inclined to say that about records. I think people think that a band goes in a recording studio, sets up a microphone, they press record, the band plays 12 songs, and they walk out of there with a tape and they have that made into records. And it's just that simple. But you and I know from our experience that that's not how it works, that you actually spend a fair amount of time trying to get the right takes, making sure that everybody's in tune, tuning stuff, adding stuff to make it sound like you're not adding stuff.
Yeah.
Mixing it, mastering it, sequencing it, getting the cover art, all of that sort of stuff. So they get the finished product, right? And so if you've got a record that's worked, if you've spent 6 months and $6 billion or whatever they cost these days to get in the studio for that long, and you come out with something and it sounds like, oh yeah, that was immediately perfect. Did you do what you set out to do exactly? I mean, I feel like we did because I was able to get this crack little unit in with a producer that I trust and an engineer that is the best and make it happen. I mean, it didn't have to take a long time because these guys were pros. We didn't actually rehearse before we went in. We just recorded. I'd sent demos to them, but we didn't sit down and have specific rehearsal sessions for this record, for any of the tracks.
I love that.
Me too.
And
I feel very proud of that. I feel like that is what the immediacy of doing a 3.5 day record to me is key to why the energy is there. You've got Dixon in the control room sitting next to Jason, the guys you want listening to these tracks going down, who can say, I think we got it on this one. Let's get another one just to be sure, and not feel like, oh well, the snare hit on measure 4 of bar 6 of the third verse is off by a nanosecond, so we need to go back and punch that in. It's like, what? No, I mean, the records I like. And again, let's go back to something that's an obvious touch point for me, which is Radio City by Big Star.
Oh, yeah.
That's a great record, right? Beautiful record. It never has felt to me like it was anything more or less 3 guys going out in the studio, turning on that microphone, hitting record, and then walking out with a finished record. And I know they didn't do that. But the sound of the record is so beautifully elegant and simple that that's why I know every note of every instrument. I know every hi-hat hit that Jody does. I know every place that a tempo takes a tiny breath. I had a long discussion with that. That's really, you get what you deserve, right? The last song on the first side. And I had gone down to Memphis in 1978 and recorded with Richard Roseborough, who was engineer on a lot of that stuff and played on a couple of tracks. And he was really intimately familiar with the ins and outs of Big Star, as people get to be with those records. And so when we were sitting around the studio and messing around with stuff, and I started playing that song, and we both did this little nanosecond delay that Jody did on the original, and we just fell apart laughing because it was like, those are the things. I always like to say the Beatles' mistakes are our vocabulary. It's not always perfect. But
yeah,
it
the
usually
mismatched
is.
harmony lyrics and stuff like that. I love it.
Yeah, or singing the wrong words.
Yes, exactly.
I feel fine, Now, a telling thing. Tell me if you've heard this or not. They came out with the Revolver box a few years ago, right?
Right.
And they had the original recording of Rain.
I have that box. Oh, wonderful stuff.
The original recording of Rain, which is at
much
a different
faster
tempo.
Yeah, I love that so much.
That when I heard that, of all people, our Stevie Moore sent me that because he said, "You're not going to believe this," and he was right. Stevie's right. So I played it, and I was like, "Oh my god!" And the thing that happens on that, which is a remarkable thing, is that when you slow a recording down, that usually points out the inconsistencies between the attack of the different instruments being together, like locking stuff together. But man, when they slowed down Rain, I mean, the locking was still completely intact. To me, that was like the discovery of the Dead Sea Scrolls or the Shroud of Turin or something like that. Finding that recording and making people know that it existed, because I always just thought it was just a brilliantly played track. And man, did they get that soupiness of it, Yeah. So I love stuff like that. I think there's little bits like that on my record too that people will hear. I hope they listen carefully. I think they are good listeners. But Dixon's the listener guy that I really needed to have in that control room.
She and me make a most unlikely we maintain the mystery and our curiosity, and she's so smart and she's very good at art. She might disagree with you, but it's not true. It's not true. She doesn't seem to mind a crazy guy, crazy about her, and I'll tell you why. If you promise to remind me, she and
Looking to buy a guitar, an amp, pedals? Find great deals on all of these, as well as audio and recording gear at reverb.com. You can also sell your gear through Reverb. They have great articles about music gear and bands. And Reverb believes music makes the world a better place. That's why they created Reverb Gives, that provides youth music education programs all over the world with the instruments they need to make music. Link to Reverb through Frets with DJ Fey in the show notes for this episode. Well, that 3.5 day session for the Face of 6-Day was just about a year ago. Was it January of last year?
It was
early last year, I know.
Yeah, it was great. It was it was for me, knowing I was going into that at the beginning of the year. We had just gotten home from a family visit to Chicago. We do the experience Christmas rather than the gigantic present Christmas these days, which is much more fun. So I got back and I was like, okay, I'm going in. Okay, this is it. Here we go. It's like, and I was so thrilled and I was so excited and I just wanted to make the most of every day. I wanted everybody to work a reasonable amount of time and not feel like I was, driving the prize racehorse around the racetrack at full speed on a wet track. Not going to do that. I want these guys are pros. And they had worked together for years too, Robert and Rob, and they're just fantastic guys. They are no nonsense about the music. They are so focused that I felt like an interloper in their conversations sometimes. But they got the stuff worked out, and then we cut it and it was worked out. And it was like, this is the way it's supposed to be. I love this, So I was very, very happy with the procedure. And then Dixon sent me mixes, and for the most part, he nailed them on the first or second mix. I would send him a couple of suggestions, but otherwise, he really did it all himself in his home studio in Canton, Ohio.
Well, Don Dixon not only produced and mixed the album, but he also added some keyboard and percussion and harmony.
Yeah, he's part of that. Part of that. He sings on. I think he sings background vocals on that kind of guy, for example. But he's got some piano parts and stuff too. Mark Simonson from the Old Ceremony, if you know that band, Django Haskins and the Old Ceremony, great group, and he played the organ on High High Horse. Took a really nice solo in there. Marty Jones Dixon, wife of Don Dixon, and solo artist Supreme, who was maybe the first person to cover my songs on a major label record. She sang background vocals on See About You, and that made me very happy. I danced around once I got that track back with her vocals on it. I was like, this is exactly what it needed. Marty did the cover of the Drifters biography album book as well.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I still have
such a talented painter.
I still have in my stack on cassette, no less, an old, I'm trying to remember the album title, but it's an album by Marty Jones, produced by Don Dixon, I'm sure. And she did a great version of a song I always loved by Graham Parker, You Can't Take Love for Granted. It's a really sweet cover of that song.
Yes, she did a bunch of records like that. I mean, Marty was cool because I don't want to talk about her in the past tense, but I don't get the feeling she does a lot of music very much. She's really done a great career as a painter and does a lot of wonderful exhibitions of her beautiful work. But when she sings, it is a time for great joy and happiness. And she did a record that they organized these concerts in New York and LA. Then one in New York was at the Bottom Line, and one in LA was at the Roxy. And it was I would even bet Rob Ladd may have been on drums for this, but it was Don and Marty and all of the songwriters that had contributed. So it was people like Richard Barone from the bongos, and me, and Marshall Crenshaw. And then on the West Coast, oh, no. Okay. Also at the Bottom Line was my first time of meeting Janice Ian. And and it was just so great to meet her because I'd been a huge fan anyway. Who wasn't, right? You know, what's not to love about Society's Child, for crying out loud? And she was just great. And, you know, I don't know if you follow her on Facebook. She's droll.
I do, actually, yeah.
You know, just incredible human being. So that was really a cool thing that she was able to do that. I want to say, was that Used Guitars? Maybe is that the name of the album? But but Graham was involved with one of those as well. So what would happen would be Graham would get up and do a song of his, and then she'd do "Can't Take Love for Granted," for example. And so we had a great set with all these marvelous songs, with the author and the other, you know, and a song of theirs as well as a bonus. But it was great fun.
Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on when you're listening to Frets with DJ Fey. This is Peter Holsapple. Thanks for tuning in.
Well, I would think, and you tell me, but that your time with the Paranoid style might have influenced some of your writing and playing on this new album?
Yes. I would say that getting the call to play lead guitar on these wonderful songs of Elizabeth's gave me confidence to come up with stuff on lead guitar. I've been a very fortunate guy. I've had so many great people playing lead guitar in bands in my life. I've had Chris Stamey, I've had Gene Holder, I had Eric Peterson, I had Reganisho, Gary Eaton, Robert Mache. Oh my God, just all these people. Tom Eshelman from Little Diesel, just brilliant players, you know? So all I've really had to do is kind of be the rhythm guitar player. And then I've gotten to do that with Will for so many decades that his snare hand and my strumming hand are kind of connected, like, well, no, the unseen umbilical cord. But I like to play lead guitar. You know, when I was a kid, I wanted to be Mike Bloomfield. Who didn't? You know, but I just felt like I wasn't as good. I never felt like I was very good at it. I had a hard time figuring out how do you build a solo, because you can't. It's like writing a story. It's got a beginning, a middle, and an end, and you've got to fill that in. And same thing with a solo. You can't just stand there and go, "I'm going to solo now," and then hope that your hands participate in the exercise, because that's really hoping against all hope that something is going to happen that may not happen. So consequently, getting to do the stuff with the Paranoid Style and having their wonderful approval and making me feel like it is something that I could do, made me feel like it was something I could do. So I thought, well, why don't I do a record that's more rock guitar and less strictly power pop? Because, well, like I say, I don't want it to sound like the DVs. I don't want it to sound like the Drifters. I'd really like to sound like me. I would like to have it be in that weird middle ground of whatever the Venn diagram of all of my professional obligations turns into in the center, and just have it sort of be an amalgam. And I think I did that. I said I really wanted to have something that I could play on electric guitar with a band, and also on acoustic guitar if I need to go out that way, which I suspect is probably how I'll do a lot of the touring for this record. But I think I think that there's enough chunky, solid rhythm guitar in there to make it work with just acoustic guitar and vocal. So we'll see. I'm going to give that a try.
Yeah, I'm still a lifelong rhythm player who occasionally attempts to play lead, but I don't know. I'm a rhythm guy.
Well, it's funny. I worked on a record a few years ago. Well, with Dixon producing again. Florence Dorr, Highways and Rocket Ships.
Love it. I have that.
Okay, Florence is the great professional singer-songwriter and English professor at UNC, and she is married to the DV's drummer Will Rigby. And I played lead guitar on a couple of songs on that record. Most of the lead guitar was taken over by Mark Spencer from the Blood Oranges and Sunvolt and what have you. Really fantastic guitar player. But I did get to play a couple of songs. I played lead on Fucking With Your Heart, I think. What is it? Thundercloud? I guess that's what you called it. And there's another one, but it's like this kind of standard kind of Chuck Berry, fourths, rising force kind of stuff, right? Nothing terribly adventuresome. Well played, done with characteristic good taste, of course, as I am known to do, but not anything you would say, hey, that's the guy I want to play lead guitar for me. And it's like more like, hey, that guy got through to the end. Okay. But now with this record, I was able to kind of wail, and the lead guitar parts were all kind of done fairly quickly. We just found an amp in that nice collection of amps that they have over at Overdub Lane. And I brought one of my 5 or 6 electric guitars over. And I figured out what I wanted to do with pedals. And I was able to record with pedals when I wanted to, because sometimes engineers don't like that. But this engineer was really great. And he was like, yeah, it saves us trouble later, I learned to love your sound. So I did. And it was great. And I got to play lead guitar, and we didn't have to cobble together a lot of parts. I would say, could we start that over from here? And we do it, and I'd end up with a part, And again, having these parts and having them done in the time period allotted to be done was great, because it did not allow me to go back and sort of dick around with stuff later after the fact and, polish it to the point where you've sharpened the pencil down to the eraser. It's not of any use anymore. You've lost any of the vibe you were looking for. So all the vibe is intact in all those tracks. And Dixon was great. He picked the right versions. We worked on them. I got to get across a few songs with some decent, thoughtful lyrics. I think I got some funny stuff across because, hey, I'm a funny guy. I really am. You may not realize it from this conversation, but I'm actually kind of funny sometimes. But, I wrote That Kind of Guy because I think that kind of guy is kind of great in a way. Our record stores and, record sales, collector stores and things like that. I think that sort of sets itself up for a little bit of ridicule sometimes, don't you?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I like records, but I don't mind a $2 record that's got a scratch on it, but I'm certainly not going to pay $750 for a sealed copy of a record that I really just want to listen to. You can't listen to if it's sealed. So I like that kind of guy. I feel a lot of ownership in that just because I am indeed that kind of guy. You can't see me right now, but I have a T-shirt on that says Zuke, Caroli, Schmidt, Liebezeit, and Suzuki.
Okay.
And those are my favorite. That's my favorite lineup of the band Can.
Okay.
And so it's one of, yeah, Can, not to be confused with my other favorite band at the time, Man, who was also on United Artists Records. Get me started, I'm a mess.
Didn't they have that classic album cover with Alfred E. Newman and like a fish and something? It was a great album.
Man, yes. Rick Griffin did that. And there was a guy that did the artwork for this beautiful record of theirs. I don't know if you were familiar with them at all, but Terry Williams from Rockpile was their drummer for a long time. Yeah. Who is a total metronome. And you listen to some of this stuff that they did during that period. Even the live stuff that they do. There's a whole record live with like John Cipollina from Quicksilver joining them for lead guitar, and it's just sterling. But the artwork on this one record called "Be Good to Yourself at Least Once a Day," and it's great because it's United Artists cover. It's a fold out record, and when you open it up, it opens into Man's Map of Wales, which is basically 24 by 24 square beautifully illustrated map of Wales with like the various guys from Man and Dave Edmonds and all those guys and the Eyes of Blue and all the other bands from Cardiff and Dartmoor and things like that. And it's just beautiful. And there's 4 songs and it's just excellent. But the art director on that was a guy named Pierre Tubbs, Tubbs. This is your that kind of guy history lesson for today. Pierre Tubbs was an art director at United Artists Records in the 70s. He was also married to a woman named Maxine Nightingale, for whom he wrote a song called "Right Back Where We Started From," which you probably know, right?
Oh yeah,
great song, right? Which also features, of all people, Bob Andrews from Ridley Schwartz on keyboards. Yeah. Yep. Funny, huh? It's a small world. But that's a beautiful record. If you're looking for something if you like kind of grooving guitar-y kind of stuff, there's no vocals on there that'll make you write home, I mean, that's the story of my records, right? The vocals are not what people come for. They come for the songs. But the songs and the instrumentation are really, really beautiful on this Man record, and really worth your while to give a listen to. Be Good to Yourself. And it's on streaming services, so you can hear it. But if you can ever find a copy of the actual vinyl LP with that fold-out cover, it's you wonder how you look at United Artists those days. You look at those album covers by Family, like Fearless and Anyway, and what's the one? It's Only a Movie that had the snapper that you like on the inside. You pull it out, and it's like you make it. It's like a piece of cardboard that you whip down, and it makes it sound like a gun going off.
Yeah,
and it's like this is in the record.
With the covers back then.
This is so expensive. I know who would do that now. Nobody. It's all tracks, right? It's a track economy. Oh well. Glad I lived through it.
Yeah. No, I am a huge Rockpile, Nick Lowe, Dave Edmonds, Ridley Schwartz fan, so I will be looking into that today. That's Eric Roscoe Amble from his classic album Roscoe's Gang, produced by Eric, along with Lou Whitney, and featuring Ron Rongo Gremp, Joe Terry, and D. Clinton Thompson, all former members of the Morels. I hope you'll listen to my 2-part interview with Roscoe in Season 1 of Frets with DJ Fey.
That was the hottest gig in town, the Morels gig, and there was a sign, and Rongo was at the door, and there was a sign that said, "Donnie's sick, the Morels can't play tonight, but Lou has sent the Del Lords from New York City." And really, for our band, that made St. Louis became a second home almost for us, throughout the band's existence.
Eric Roscoe Amble from Season 1 of Frets. I'm still like shaking my head in disbelief that I had Brinsley on the show a couple months ago, or a few months ago.
Wow.
That was
I got to play with Martin Belmont.
Oh, that's great. Fantastic.
A few years ago. A friend of mine in London, who is a former Tulsa resident, grew up in Tulsa, but has lived in England for years now. And his name is Bob Collum, Collum.
Yeah.
He's a very, very good songwriter. You know his stuff?
We have become like friends through Facebook. I know he lives over in the UK, but he's from here. And he was actually
great.
He was actually very instrumental in helping me. He's the one that recommended I get in touch with Brinsley Schwartz. And I was like, I would love to, but I just couldn't even fathom it. But boy, it didn't take long. And he introduced us and made it happen. Bob Collum's great.
Well, I will say also, as a friend of Bob Andrews from New Orleans, where he lived, he's an incredibly approachable guy. If you're friends with him on Facebook and you wanted to talk to him, I don't know what his deal is these days. I think he plays mostly piano in like Taos, New Mexico or something like that. He's moved out there several years ago. But he does all kinds of great stuff out there. He plays piano and I don't think he plays in a band particularly, unless it's a pickup kind of thing. But marvelous guy. But as I said, Martin Belmont was playing guest slots with Bob Collum and the Welfare Mothers. And so when I went over to London with Hootie, Bob was like, "Oh man, we should get you to play. Come over and play. We'll play. We'll book a gig and you can play, and we'll get all sorts of people down and stuff like that." And so it was great. And Martin is about 7 feet tall and he weighs about 25 pounds. And he's just the nicest guy, very quiet. He's but every time he would hit a lick, I was like, I'm in heaven. This is so great, And so it was really neat. And so Graham came down, Graham Parker, and my friends Kimberly Rue and Lee Cave Berry got up and played. And I'm trying to remember who all made it down there. A bunch of people. Bob Andrews had just been in town too, but had to get out of town, get back to the States or something. But it was really neat, and I got to do my first London show for many, many years solo. Yeah.
This is
thanks to Bob Collum.
Well, this is a reminder that Bob and I have had quite a few text exchanges. I've never met him, but we've been in discussions to get him on this show. So I think I'm going to have to make that happen.
You should definitely do that.
Yeah.
He's such a good songwriter. He's, I don't know, he's one of those guys he's just got a gift for the simplicity of the song, I'm a fussy writer sometimes. I get too fussy with my song. Like things don't have to do all the things that that's another nice thing about this record is that I've tried to really strip down some of my proclivities toward an overabundance of charm, if you will. I think that the songs can stand on their own with the chords and the guitar, and I'm cool with that. I don't feel like I have to make it into a big production number, so that's why you're not hearing any string sections or horns or there's one song on there with an acoustic guitar. I mean, I'm kind of flying against the face of my own career parameters, and I'm fine with that. I mean, all I want to do is remain relevant and head into the next decade with if this was going to be my last record, let's not get too grisly about this, but if I was to walk out the door and get hit by a garbage truck as I was walking out to the street, I live in the great knowledge that this record does have a release date and will come out. And that's a great thing. And if it is going to be the last thing that I do, which I don't think it will be, at least it's a really great sounding record. And I'm so pleased with that. I think it's okay to make the best stuff of your career at the end of your life. It's okay with me. I mean, I want to keep doing it, and maybe something really even more brilliant will happen. And I had this really funny idea that the Continental Drifters should do the opposite of what Fleetwood Mac did, where Fleetwood Mac started as a blues band and turned into this kind of like 70s rock and roll yacht rock kind of band, right? And but maybe that the Continental Drifters, who started as a kind of a pop band, should sort of like work our way back to just being a 4-piece blues band. I'm up for it. I can get those Bloomfield yayas out.
Well, I choose to believe that the album's going to come out without any garbage truck incident, and so.
Oh, I hope not. That's a really bad career move, I mean, I can think of some. You can have a little the funeral home fans with the personalized message on them. Oh, what did I see? So here's my last bit of marketing thing that I just discovered, which was really, really, really brilliant. If you go to the MC5 website and you look at their merch, okay, there's a lot of T-shirts and hoodies, right? Yeah. There's LPs. There's The Hard Way, which is a great record, by the way, if you haven't heard it yet. It's got some great stuff on it. Great version of 25 Miles, for example. So there's all this stuff on there. Huh? Yeah, that's right. Wayne's last stand. So, but one of the sold out things that they have, and I'm just heartbroken, is an MC5 tire gauge. I've never even thought that could be a premium.
Exactly. You're like, what? I have to have one.
But the longer I think about it as a Detroit band, of course it's a premium for the MC5.
Oh, exactly.
What a brilliant idea, I
didn't pick up on that at first.
Hootie had condoms and lighters. That sort of made sense.
Wow.
Crazy, huh?
Yeah.
I think the Black Crowes had rolling papers, maybe.
Makes sense. Well, Peter, thanks again so much for this. This was great. It's always great to talk to you. And one last thing, you mentioned, playing some shows to support the new album. Any chance we can get you back here in St. Louis? It's been a while.
I would love to get back there. I'll say also that show with the Paranoid Style at Off Broadway was just that got a lot of things started, by the way. That's where I met John Langford.
Yeah.
And John Langford did the cover art for my record.
Yeah,
did a sterling job. And then and we played an awesome show, and I was just so thrilled. And I would love to come back there. I've got so many friends in St. Louis. I just, I never get back there for long enough. But I think the thing we're working on right now is trying to get a Pacific Northwest tour together of house concerts. And then once we get that sort of underway, then we'll get toward the end of the summer, and, the weather will be nice, and we can probably head into the Midwest and East Coast. So I just have to figure out how much I can be away from home and my job.
Sure.
So
Off-Broadway remains.
This is my job. What am I talking about?
It is your job. Off-Broadway remains my favorite venue. So I don't know. I'll keep holding out that we'll see you there again sometime soon.
I hope so too, man. It's great talking with you. And have a great weekend.
Thanks, Peter.
Okay. Bye-bye.
See ya.
I wake up in the morning with the sun in my eyes, and every day is a total surprise. Isn't that great? Isn't that great? And if it was gonna happen, it would have happened by now. And would it matter anyhow? Nothing comes for those who wait, hanging up by the garden gate. Meet the face of 68. 68, oh 68. Meet the face of 68. Isn't that right? Isn't that great at 68? At 68.
Thanks for tuning in to Frets with DJ Fey. If you like the show, you can subscribe for free at most podcast platforms. Hope you'll join me again next time. Stay tuned.